Trust in Port Charles is fragile, but once Sonny Corinthos stops believing in someone, things get dangerous fast. That's the storm building inside General Hospital as Sonny's growing distrust of Rick starts reaching what feels like a breaking point. At first it was suspicion, then frustration. Now it feels personal. Because Sonny isn't just questioning Rick's story anymore. He's questioning Rick himself. And once that line gets crossed, there may be no turning back. Sonny's growing. Distrust of Rick on General Hospital may be reaching a breaking point. In Port Charles, relationships are rarely built on complete honesty. Secrets circulate constantly, motives overlap, and alliances often survive on temporary understanding rather than genuine trust. Yet even within that unstable world, there are limits. There comes a point when suspicion evolves into conviction, a point when emotional tension becomes impossible to suppress, a point when distrust stops simmering quietly beneath the surface and starts threatening to consume everything around it. That appears to be exactly where Sonny and Rick are heading. What once felt like caution now feels like certainty. Sonny's growing distrust of Rick no longer resembles passing doubt or strategic concern. Instead, it carries the emotional weight of someone who believes he is being manipulated, misled, or intentionally kept in the dark. And in General Hospital, Sonny at a breaking point is never a small problem. It is a turning point. Sonny Corinthos, a character built on instinct. Sonny Corinthos has survived Port Charles not simply because of power, but because of instinct. He reads people carefully. He notices emotional inconsistencies. He senses shifts in loyalty long before others openly acknowledge them. That emotional intuition defines him just as much as his reputation does. And once Sonny begins feeling distrust towards someone, it rarely disappears quietly. Instead, it grows, especially when new details continue reinforcing his suspicion. Rick Lansing, a man defined by complexity. Rick Lansing has never been an easy figure to categorize. He is intelligent, strategic, emotionally layered. But he is also someone whose actions often contain hidden motivations beneath the surface. That complexity makes Rick compelling, but it also makes him difficult to trust completely. Because with Rick, there is always the lingering possibility that he knows more than he admits. He is protecting his own interests first, or he is controlling information selectively. And Sonny appears increasingly aware of that possibility. The shift from unease to distrust. Distrust rarely appears instantly. It develops through accumulation. A strange answer here, a missing detail there, a reaction that feels emotionally incomplete. Over time, these moments stop feeling isolated. They begin forming a pattern. That is where Sonny seems to be emotionally now. Not merely suspicious, but actively connecting inconsistencies into something larger. And once patterns emerge, emotional escalation becomes inevitable. Why Sonny's distrust feels different this time. What makes this storyline especially compelling is the emotional intensity beneath Sonny's reaction. This no longer feels like standard caution. It feels personal. That distinction matters, because when Sonny takes distrust personally, his behavior changes. He becomes more emotionally reactive, less patient, more determined to uncover the truth. An emotional investment increases unpredictability. The psychological tension between Sonny and Rick. One of the strongest elements of this storyline is psychological conflict. Neither Sonny nor Rick operates passively. Both analyze, both observe, both attempt to maintain control of situations around them. That creates a fascinating dynamic where every interaction feels layered with hidden meaning. A conversation is never just a conversation. A question is never just a question. Every exchange becomes strategic, and strategy creates tension. The importance of perception. Even if Rick believes he is acting rationally or protectively, perception shapes reality in Port Charles. If Sonny perceives deception, emotional damage begins immediately. Trust depends not only on truth, but on transparency. And once transparency disappears, relationships destabilize quickly. That instability now seems central to their dynamic. Sonny's fear of manipulation. At the core of Sonny's distrust may be a deeper emotional fear, the fear of being manipulated. Sonny values loyalty intensely. He can tolerate conflict. He can tolerate disagreement. But what he struggles to tolerate is the feeling that someone is deliberately controlling information around him. If he believes Rick is shaping narratives strategically, the emotional fallout becomes much larger than simple disagreement. Because manipulation feels like betrayal, the role of missing information. Much of Sonny's frustration appears connected not only to what Rick says, but to what he leaves out. Omission creates suspicion, especially when those omissions occur repeatedly. Small missing details become psychologically significant because they suggest intentional concealment, and intentional concealment immediately raises larger questions. What else is being hidden? Why is it being hidden? Who benefits from the secrecy? Those unanswered questions fuel Sonny's growing emotional instability. The emotional cost of constant suspicion. Distrust creates emotional exhaustion. The more Sonny questions Rick, the more mentally consumed he becomes by uncertainty. Because uncertainty is psychologically draining, it forces constant analysis, constant vigilance, constant emotional calculation. Eventually, that emotional pressure reaches a point where patience disappears, and that breaking point may be approaching quickly. Rick's possible perspective. Interestingly, Rick may not fully recognize how serious the situation has become. He may believe he is protecting information responsibly, he is acting strategically for valid reasons. Or Sonny's concerns are exaggerated. That disconnect creates further tension. Because if Rick underestimates Sonny's emotional state, he may continue behaving in ways that deepen distrust unintentionally. Why this storyline works so well. This storyline succeeds because it is built on emotional realism rather than sudden shock. Distrust develops naturally, gradually. Viewers witness the accumulation of emotional strain step by step. That slow build creates authenticity. Because relationships rarely collapse from one moment alone, they collapse from repeated emotional fractures over time. The breaking point concept. A breaking point implies something critical, that emotional pressure can no longer remain contained. For Sonny, that could mean confrontation, drastic action, emotional explosion, or strategic retaliation. Whatever form it takes, the key idea is escalation. The situation can no longer remain emotionally stable. The thin line between instinct and paranoia. An interesting layer beneath the storyline is uncertainty over whether Sonny's distrust is entirely justified. Is his instinct accurate? Or is emotional pressure amplifying suspicion beyond reality? That ambiguity creates compelling tension because viewers are left questioning. Is Sonny seeing the truth clearly? Or is distrust itself distorting perception? This psychological uncertainty deepens the narrative significantly. The ripple effect. Across Port Charles. Conflict between Sonny and Rick never remains isolated. Their tension affects broader dynamics throughout Port Charles. Others may begin choosing sides, withholding information, adjusting behavior strategically. Fearful of fallout. Once distrust spreads socially, the emotional atmosphere shifts for everyone. Power struggles beneath the surface. Part of Sonny's distrust may also involve control. Both men are accustomed to influencing outcomes. Both prefer understanding situations fully before others do. When information becomes uneven, power balance shifts. If Sonny feels Rick possesses knowledge he does not, distrust intensifies because it threatens emotional and strategic control simultaneously. The emotional weight of history. History matters deeply in General Hospital. Past experiences shape present reactions. Sonny's response to Rick is likely influenced not only by current events, but by accumulated history between them. Past betrayals, past manipulations, past emotional wounds. All of those unresolved experiences add emotional weight to present tension. which means current suspicion may feel larger because it activates old emotional scars. The danger of emotional escalation. Emotionally escalating situations become dangerous because rational communication begins breaking down. Instead of seeking understanding, characters begin seeking confirmation of their fears. That shift is critical, because once Sonny starts interpreting Rick through a lens of distrust, every action Rick takes may appear suspicious, even innocent ones, and perception can become self-reinforcing. The audience experience. Viewers are drawn to storylines like this because they reflect universal emotional fears. Being lied to, being manipulated, realizing trust may have been misplaced. Those fears feel psychologically relatable even within the dramatic environment of Port Charles, and relatability strengthens emotional investment. Why Sonny remains such a powerful character. Sonny's emotional intensity keeps him compelling. He experiences loyalty deeply, distrust deeply, protection deeply. Every emotional state becomes amplified because Sonny never operates halfway emotionally. That intensity makes his breaking points especially dramatic, because audiences understand instinctively when Sonny reaches his limit, consequences follow. The potential consequences. Ahead. If Sonny's distrust fully erupts, the fallout could include damaged alliances, emotional confrontations, strategic retaliation, new conflicts emerging across Port Charles. Because distrust rarely ends quietly, especially when both individuals involved are strong-willed and emotionally guarded. Themes driving the storyline. Several key themes shape this narrative. Trust versus control. Sonny struggles with losing emotional certainty and informational control. Truth versus perception. Whether Rick is truly deceptive may matter less than Sonny's belief that he is. Loyalty versus self-protection. Both men may prioritize protecting themselves emotionally before protecting the relationship itself.